Hello, it's Editing Kyle here. During the video recording and editing process, I actually gave myself a challenge. One of my problems with AI art that we will get to in a later video is that a lot of it is not ethically sourced, and a lot of it is technically stolen art. And so I thought it'd be interesting to make a video almost entirely out of ethically sourced stock footage, particularly at the end, which is why it's 2 a.m. when I'm recording this. Okay, cool. If you're wondering why there's so much stock footage, it's because I decided I was going to challenge myself. On to the video. One of the greatest modern trends and questions that faces humanity in recent years has been the development of artificial intelligence. And while this creation and technology has a great deal of applications in almost every single sector, it is already starting to see some use within the beloved world of games. I have a lot of opinions on AI art, and my main opinion is it's time to stop. Hello everyone, I'm Kyle Lott. I'm going to make this intro very quickly. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, buy our games if you would like to support us, and I love you, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching these videos. Let's talk about AI art. So, in recent years, AI art has blown up in the board game industry, and I've seen a lot of arguments for and against AI art. And I want to start this off by saying that for numerous reasons, I am against the use of AI in any way, shape, or form in modern board games. But a lot of the articles and a lot of the things that I saw that examined it, I thought went about it the wrong way, and I thought that maybe perhaps my perspective would be something that people like and appreciate, both as a game designer, as a creative, and as a small business owner, and as just somebody who employs and works with artists on a regular basis. I thought maybe I could add something of value to the discussion. While I am by no means a major board game publisher, I have my games stocked in like a couple hundred stores. At this point, we're in several different countries. We're in talks about getting one of our games translated into a language other than English. And so, again, while I'm not major or massive, I do think that I have an opinion on this that maybe is a little bit more informed and in the trenches than your regular opinion. So let's talk a little bit about AI art. This is the first of a series of videos that I'm going to be doing on AI art because, much like every other video on this channel, I think that when I'm inspired by something, or when I feel very strongly about a topic, I feel like it makes for the best content. And so I want to examine what I believe are the economic and ethical arguments against AI art, and I want to cover when it is appropriate to use AI art. AI is a tool, right? Much like a hammer or a pickaxe, it's a tool. And I think, again, much like a hammer and a pickaxe, there's a wrong way to use it. If you bash someone over the head with a hammer, that's not the proper use of a hammer as a tool. And I think the same thing can be said, albeit with far less ethical implications, about AI art. It's an analogy. I don't actually think it's as bad as bashing someone over the head with a hammer, but I do disagree with it. And the thing that we're going to be talking about today is what I believe is an argument that I haven't seen come up often against AI art, and that's the money. Let's consider this from an economic perspective and as a consumer of games. And again, while I do consider games art, I want to boil them down to a transactional level for us. I think the biggest question for any game, whether it is something as simple as Cards Against Humanity to something as complicated as Twilight Imperium, I think the biggest question that I like to talk about when I'm talking about board games is, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to pay for an experience? That is ultimately the question that you are answering every single time you purchase a board game. Whenever you buy any of our games, that is the question that you are answering every single time. If you wait for something to go on sale till it's 50% off, you have answered the question, I was willing to pay half of what the MSRP on this product was, or half of what people thought I was going to pay for this. So again, ultimately it comes down to three different things for me, and that's art, community, and time. And I want to talk about just the first one today in terms of our economic values, in terms of just art. This is going to be a much longer series than I would like, but I think it's one that needs to be talked about, and so I'm going to devote a couple videos to it at least. But again, it goes to art and time, shall we say. Ultimately, my major argument, both as a publisher and as a consumer of board games and role-playing games in general, is that it devalues what you pay for. One of the things that I think allows games to hold and maintain their value, other than the experiences that they provide, is the art assets that are included. When you purchase a board game, you are in many ways purchasing a piece of art. This was created, these paintings, these digital products were created by somebody with a skilled hand and a expertise in rendering images that are aesthetically pleasing or fit themes that the company wants. And AI art devalues that. And I'm going to talk about what I mean by that before. Take a hard look at the images that I have included in this moment, in this part of the presentation, the video, whatever the heck you want to call this thing, and realize that those are not all done by the same studio. Those are done by different studios. And in fact, this is my biggest issue with AI art. Part of the value in a board game is the uniqueness of what you are purchasing, and the fact that it holds up because you own a piece of art that is different from and made with a different level of expertise or a different type of expertise than any other art that has been created. So again, I've included a couple more examples of how this looks. And again, I'm using these company names, by the way, for this iterative AI art, if you would like to call it that, because I want you to understand how similar these images look. If I took these words away, you might not know this was two different studios. And in fact, I purposely only left one tag in because I wanted you to think all of this was done by one studio, when in fact it is done by different ones. So again, let's talk about this, right? These dragons, despite the fact that the backgrounds look different, that the colors look different, these dragons look almost virtually identical in terms of their aesthetics and the style in which they are painted. Yes, the colors are different. Yes, the style, the type of dragon is different. The one on the right is a more European one, while the one on the left is more inspired by Chinese or Eastern mythology, but it doesn't matter. Ultimately, these dragons look like they were painted by the same hand, and if you are purchasing these for use in your product, then you are essentially having a product that is almost identical or is very similar to a different one. Again, I included another example, and while I don't think these are similar in terms of the styling, I thought the shading was very, very similar between these two pictures. And in fact, when I searched AI dragon on Google, these Google images were right next to each other, despite the fact that they come from competing companies and competing programs, which I think should tell you quite a bit about the similarities. Ultimately, this begs a question for myself and for as a publisher and as a consumer: why would I pay a premium for something that I can get for free? This is the big issue, and for me, this is one of the biggest economic reasons why I cannot support AI art as a professional working in the board games industry. Why would I pay for something I can get for free? And as a publisher, as somebody who makes games, produces games, and sells games to the masses, why would I willingly use AI art that anybody could replicate in my games for free? That, to me, devalues the product that I am creating and makes it harder for me as a business person, as somebody who is selling a product, to advertise it, to market it, and to say to somebody, this is why you should buy my product. It is unique. I lose a great deal of my uniqueness in doing something, in creating something that is almost essentially identical to, or is stylistically similar enough that it feels identical to, other products on the market. Oftentimes, when we talk about business, this Venn diagram has come up all the time, right? It's good, fast, and cheap. And the idea is that you can really only have two of those things. You can have something that's fast and good, but it is then going to be more expensive. You can have something that's good and cheap, but then it takes a while. And you can have something that's fast and cheap, but the thing is, it's not going to be a very good quality. And while I think this is a pretty good metric, I do think it actually boils down, at least in our hobby, to this one. Either something is unique and costly, or it's cheap and fast. And in fact, I think a lot of things fit this sort of duology of product attributes, shall we say, right? Something can be unique and costly, but then it's not going to be cheap and fast, both in terms of how it is to manufacture, how it is to get it to the consumer, and how it is, in our case, in my industry, to play, right? Something can be unique and costly, or it can be cheap and fast, but those two things are often diametrically opposed, and I believe they're always diametrically opposed, at least in our industry. Now again, cheap and fast does not mean bad. There are times in my life where I want a McDonald's cheeseburger more than I want all of the filet mignon in the entire freaking world. There are days where I wake up at whatever time, or it's late and I'm coming home from work at like 9:30, and I feel this urge in my brain and my soul for a McDonald's cheeseburger, the thin patty, the diced onions, the cheap bun, it doesn't matter. Nothing else on this planet will do but the McDonald's cheeseburger. I want to pay $1.75, and I want to pay maybe more if I want more cheeseburger, but I want that. Nothing is going to do this but this. Whereas the Mona Lisa is unique and costly. It's a one-of-a-kind masterpiece created by a once-in-a-generational talent, actually a once-in-a-millennium talent in the form of Leonardo da Vinci, and it is literally priceless. Now, notice that I didn't say that the thing that is fast and cheap is bad. I love a McDonald's cheeseburger. At this point, part of my soul is made of McDonald's cheeseburgers. When people ask, do you got McDonald's money? I scrounged for McDonald's money as a kid. Cheap and fast does not mean bad. I want us to understand that cheap and fast does not mean bad, but it does mean that if you're going to create something using AI art, and you're going to try to go for the unique and costly model, it's going to be a problem. And games are, for the most part, unique and costly. There are a couple examples of good cheap and fast games, and again, this is not a dig at these games. I own You've Got to Be Kidding Me. I actually went out and bought this game because I played it once, and it was awesome, and it cost me like $8, $10 for this game, a game that uses stock photos of kittens and little else. Like stock photos of kittens and cheap free vector graphics. I could have made You Gotta Be Kidding Me in my off-brand Photoshop that I use for these thumbnails. That is not saying a lot about its artistic quality, but the game itself is cheap. Like I said, it was about $8 to $10. I forget how much I paid for it. And it's over quickly, but that experience is a positive one. Ramen Fury is the same thing. This routinely goes for anywhere from $12 to $20, and while the artistic value of Ramen Fury is, I think, actually really, really high, it is still a cheap and fast game. Whereas something like Gloomhaven is unique and costly. This game, when I purchased it during its second print run, cost me $90 to buy, and I think another $20 and tax to ship. I think I paid $118, which is a phenomenal price for Gloomhaven. Now the game is over $200 if you want to purchase it. But again, this is a game that you are going to play over the course of months, and it's worth that price. It is worth the time and the money that you are putting into it. Now, just so you all know that I'm not ragging on other people's games, our games are the same way. After the Rain is a unique and costly game. It is $30 for what is essentially a 60-page soft-cover book. However, that game is going to last you forever, and you'll have a role-playing game system that goes on forever. In our opinion, as a company, it's worth the $30. We decided that this needed to be a unique and costly experience, both in terms of the monetary investment and the time investment. It takes 3 to 6 hours to play a copy of After the Rain, right? Cheap and Fast was becoming banana bread. This game routinely goes for $12 at retailers, and I sell it for less when I go to conventions and shows, and you're done in 10 to 30 minutes, but we wanted a cheap and fast game. Again, cheap and fast does not mean bad, but my issue as both a publisher and a designer is that AI, as a quote-unquote AI artists, and publishers that use AI are attempting to sell us a model of unique and costly using something that can be replicated for free. And now you might be saying to yourself, Kyle, that's ridiculous. There's no way that's true. Let me introduce you to Terraforming Mars. This is the Automata and the Prelude 2 expansion. So this is done by Stronghold Games in conjunction with a couple other indie studios. I think it's FryX Games. I always feel like I mispronounce it. Someone called it Freaks Games, and I was like, I don't think that's it. But here's the thing. This game uses iterative AI art in its experience. I'm not entirely positive which engine it uses. I thought it was Midjourney, but I don't think that's true, so don't quote me on that. But again, and they were very open and very honest about what they are using in terms of this thing. And again, if this was being sold to me cheaply, maybe as a consumer, maybe I would be okay with it. But it wasn't. Pledges started at as little as $29 and went up to as much as $278. And this game, not only in terms of the monetary investment, but Terraforming Mars takes about like 3 hours to play, especially if it's your first time playing. It's probably even going to be more than that. On average, this is a game that is going to absorb a great deal of your life and a great amount of your money. And this is where I think the economic argument comes to a head, because it's all about competition. Why should I, as the consumer, spend $29 to $278 on something that isn't unique. And I did use those numbers because I want you to think about the example of Terraforming Mars when you are thinking about the use of AI art. They are selling you a unique and costly model for something that is neither unique nor costly. Do you understand now why I am opposed to this as a consumer and as a business person? My business model relies on convincing people that what I create has value. That is a difficult task. But it is a task that is lent much more strength and much more credence because of the people that I have working on me. There is nobody in the world, I think, that makes art quite like Reggie Mata. There is nobody in the world that makes graphic design quite like Hannah Potts. And there's nobody in the world that I think makes games quite like Kyle Ott. In my mind, the uniqueness of a product is part of its selling point. And if it is the product of not only a unique perspective, but years of human expertise and time, and is vastly different than everything else that you can get, that's worth spending your money on. Here's the thing. If you're a consumer with your hard-earned dollars, which do seem to get harder to get every single day, why are you going to spend the same amount of money on something that you could make for free in Midjourney as opposed to something that you couldn't replicate if you tried? Again, this is the first of several videos that I'm going to be doing on this topic, but I do think this is the argument that nobody is using when we talk about AI art in games. There are other arguments to be made, ethical arguments to be made, other economic arguments to be made, but this is the first one that I want to look at. It's one that I think is maybe a little too pragmatic, maybe a little too focused on the bottom line, but here's the thing. As the consumer, you want to get the most amount of money for something that holds value for you. And I know I've said this multiple times. I'm sure that I'm repeating myself. There's like one commenter who's like, dude, you repeat yourself a lot. I do. But I'm going to say it one more time to drive the point home because I do think it matters. Why are you going to spend the same amount of money on something you could make for free as opposed to spending it on something you could not replicate if you tried? Ultimately, for me, as a consumer and as a business person, that question is easy to answer, and it's why, as a consumer and as a guy who owns a small-scale board game company, role-playing game company, whatever you want to call it, I am diametrically opposed to the use of AI art. As a business owner, I have to convince you, the consumer, that my games are worth buying, and having unique art, graphic design, and rules is part of my value proposition to you, my consumer, and the person who likes my games. And as a consumer, if I'm going to spend my hard-earned money on something, I want to know that what I am buying holds value when it's when compared to the vast sea of everything else. I think it is ridiculous that some studios are using AI art at all, particularly when there is a wealth of competition in this industry already. I know for myself, I haven't bought a Stronghold game since that Kickstarter has come out. I have no intention of purchasing Stronghold games at this point moving forward, because why, again, for me, that no longer holds value. I like knowing that my games are unique, and if I'm going to do something that is unique and costly, it better damn sure well be unique. And I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you all so much for watching. I know this is a more serious one. There are more serious ones upon this topic to follow. Hopefully this video gets well received, but to be truthful with you, I don't really care if it is or it isn't. I wanted to make it because this is something that I think is happening a lot in the industry, and this is a perspective that I wish somebody had taken maybe sooner, or at least if they have, I haven't heard it. So thank you all so much. Love and peace and enjoyment to all of you. And again, if you're going to spend your money, maybe be careful on what you're spending it on. Thanks.